Welcome back, deep divers. Ready for another plunge into the prehistoric world?
Always. What fascinating creatures are we uncovering today?
Well, this time, we're going way back,
Hmm.
even before the dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Oh, before the dinosaurs. Now that's intriguing.
We're talking Lystrosaurus and Dicynodon. Ever heard of them?
Those names are familiar, but I can't say I know much about them.
They're kind of like the unsung heroes of paleontology. Like, imagine the T-Rex and Triceratops, but millions of years earlier. They were locked in this predator-prey relationship that shaped their entire evolution.
A prehistoric power couple. I'm already hooked. Tell me more.
All right, but first, we need to set the scene. We're talking about the Permian and Triassic periods.
Okay, so we're talking a really, really long time ago.
Yeah, like 270 to 200 million years ago. Way before the continents as we know them even existed. It was all one big supercontinent, Pangea.
Wow, a completely different world. So what was life like back then?
Well, instead of the lush forests and grasslands we see today, it was mostly ferns and seed plants. Not exactly a salad bar, right?
Definitely not the kind of vegetation we're used to seeing. So, how did our stars of the show fit into all of this?
Let's start with Dicynodon. They were herbivores, which means they feasted on all those prehistoric greens.
All right, a plant eater in a world of ferns. What made them so special?
Well, imagine there's a creature with a beak, sometimes even tusks, and these powerful jaws designed to grind down the toughest vegetation.
A beak. That's not the first thing that comes to mind when I picture a prehistoric herbivore.
Right. It's a bit surprising, but that beak was key to their survival. Those Permian plants were tough, much tougher than the flowering plants we see today. The Dicynodon's beak, along with their strong jaws, allowed them to break down all that tough plant matter.
So they were perfectly adapted for their environment. It makes you wonder, though, were all Dicynodon the same, or did they come in different varieties?
Great question. And the answer is they were incredibly diverse. Some Dicynodon were small burrowers, while others grew to the size of a cow. And get this, some even lived in trees.
Wow, talk about adaptability. From burrowers to tree dwellers, it seems like Dicynodon had it all figured out. But there's always a but, right? Every herbivore needs a predator to keep things in check. Who is the Dicynodon's nemesis?
Enter Lystrosaurus, a predator built for speed and agility.
Okay, now we're talking. What did this fearsome hunter look like?
Picture this powerful jaws, sharp teeth,
Yeah.
and a body made for chasing down prey.
All right, that's more like the classic predator image I have in mind. So we've got our tough plant eater and our swift hunter, a classic prehistoric showdown. But wasn't there some kind of major event that happened during their time?
You're talking about the Permian-Triassic extinction event, right?
Yeah.
Also known as the Great Dying.
The Great Dying, that doesn't sound good.
It wasn't. It was the most severe mass extinction in Earth's history. Imagine volcanic eruptions spewing out toxic gases, the climate going haywire, and ecosystems collapsing all over the planet. A real end-of-the-world scenario.
It's hard to imagine anything surviving that.
It is. But somehow, both Lystrosaurus and Dicynodon, though definitely impacted, managed to survive.
Really? They made it through that apocalypse. How on earth did they do it?
Well, that's a question for our next segment. Because surviving the Great Dying wasn't just dumb luck. It was all about specific adaptations that gave them an edge in a world on the brink of collapse.
Welcome back, deep divers. Last time we left you hanging, remember? The Great Dying.
Yeah, I've been wondering this whole time, how on earth did Lystrosaurus and Dicynodon pull through when almost everything else was wiped out?
Well, it wasn't magic or anything. It was more like a mix of being in the right place at the right time with the right, well, adaptations.
So being prepared, like
Yeah.
having the right survival gear.
Exactly. Let's take Lystrosaurus, for example. One theory is that they were burrowers, you know? They spent a lot of time underground.
Ah, so they just hid out while the world went crazy above them.
You got it. Think about it. Volcanoes erupting, spewing toxic stuff everywhere, the climate going bonkers. A burrow that's like a safe haven, stable temperature, cleaner air.
Makes sense. So Lystrosaurus was the ultimate prepper, huh? But weren't their teeth kind of weird, too? Didn't you mention something about that?
Good memory. Lystrosaurus didn't have the typical predator teeth, you know, all sharp and pointy for ripping flesh. They had these powerful jaws, yeah, but with a beak-like structure in the front.
A beak? For a predator? How'd they hunt with that?
It might seem strange, but that beak, along with those strong jaws, gave them amazing bite force. Think of it like a prehistoric nutcracker, but for bones. They could crush right through bone and eat their prey, even if it meant swallowing big chunks.
Wow, talk about efficient eating. So they are built for a world where food was scarce and tough. What about Dicynodon? How did they survive?
Well, Dicynodon had their own set of tricks. Remember those beaks we talked about? They weren't just for looks.
Yeah, you said they were perfect for munching on those tough Permian plants. Was that their key to survival?
Bingo. While other herbivores struggled to find food as the plants died off, Dicynodon could handle a wider variety. They weren't picky eaters, that beak and those jaws. They could eat the stuff other animals couldn't, which gave them a huge advantage when food was hard to come by.
So they were the ultimate survivors, adaptable to just about anything. But surviving the extinction is just the first step, right?
Right.
What happened when they found themselves in this new post-apocalyptic world?
Good point. The Triassic period, the one that followed, was a time of recovery, new beginnings, but also intense competition. New species popped up, all vying for resources.
So a fresh start, but with new challenges.
Exactly. And Lystrosaurus and Dicynodon, they were like the seasoned veterans in this new world. Their adaptations had not only gotten them through the extinction, but they were now perfectly suited for the Triassic.
This is where things get really interesting, right?
Yeah.
How did those adaptations help them in this new world? Do those beaks continue to play a big role?
Oh, absolutely. For Dicynodon, that specialized beak was still a winner. Imagine the Triassic. The world's still healing, new plants are evolving, and Dicynodon, they could take advantage of all these changes.
Still the masters of munching, huh?
You got it. Other herbivores might have been stuck with certain types of plants, but Dicynodon had a diverse menu, which gave them an edge when food resources were still recovering.
Okay, so Dicynodon was rocking the plant-eating game. What about Lystrosaurus? Was their bone-crushing beak helping them conquer the Triassic too?
Oh, Lystrosaurus did amazingly well in the Triassic. They were one of the most widespread land animals of that time.
Really? They were everywhere.
Everywhere. We find their fossils on every continent, which is pretty amazing when you think about it.
Wow, they really took over the world. So their beak, was it helping them crush the competition? Literally.
Well, it's definitely possible. Being able to eat large chunks of bone, that would have been a big plus in a world where carcasses were valuable. But there might be more to their success story than just that.
What else could it be? I'm all ears.
Some scientists think their limbs and posture had something to do with it. See, unlike a lot of reptiles that kind of sprawl, Lystrosaurus stood more upright, with their limbs positioned directly under their body.
So they were standing tall while others were sprawled out. Why would that matter?
Well, that upright posture made them more efficient walkers, maybe gave them more stamina, they could cover more ground, travel farther, and maybe even outmaneuver their prey or competitors.
So Lystrosaurus was a real triple threat. Efficient walker, bone-crushing biter, and a global traveler. They were unstoppable.
But you said earlier that even their reign ended eventually.
Yeah, sadly it did. Both Lystrosaurus and Dicynodon had a good run in the Triassic millions of years, but eventually their time ran out. It wasn't a sudden thing, though, more like a gradual decline.
No big meteor strike this time. So what happened? Why did they disappear?
Competition, most likely. The Triassic was a time of rapid evolution. New reptiles were emerging, including the early dinosaurs, and they were probably putting pressure on the older species. The dinosaurs. I knew they had to show up eventually. So the dinosaurs outcompeted Lystrosaurus and Dicynodon.
It's a good possibility. These newer reptiles, they might have been better hunters, had better adaptations, or just been more suited to the changing environments.
It's a reminder that nothing lasts forever, right? Even the most successful species have their time. But their story doesn't end with their extinction, does it?
Mm-hmm.
What about their legacy? What did they leave behind?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll explore in our final segment. The legacy of Lystrosaurus and Dicynodon goes way beyond their time on Earth. They have a lot to teach us about survival, adaptation, and even the history of our planet itself.
All right, deep divers, we're back, ready to explore the legacy of Lystrosaurus and Dicynodon.
Absolutely. These creatures might be long gone, but their story has a lot to teach us.
So what kind of legacy did they leave behind? What makes them so important even millions of years later?
Well, their fossils, they've given us some amazing clues about how the continents moved over time.
Wait, are you saying Lystrosaurus and Dicynodon are connected to continental drift? How does that work?
Remember how we talked about Lystrosaurus fossils being found on every continent?
Yeah, it was like they had a prehistoric passport they got around.
Exactly. Now picture this. All the continents, they were once all smooshed together into one giant landmass called Pangea, and Lystrosaurus, they were roaming all over it.
Okay, so they were living on Pangea before it broke apart.
Right. And when the continents started to drift apart, they took the Lystrosaurus fossils with them.
So those fossils are like pieces of a puzzle. showing us how the continents fit together millions of years ago.
You got it. They're like little time travelers, helping us map out Earth's history.
Wow, that's incredible. So the Lystrosaurus and Dicynodon, they're like the original cartographers, huh?
You could say that. But their legacy goes beyond just continental drift. They also teach us about how life recovers after a mass extinction.
The Permian-Triassic extinction, that was a tough act to follow. How did they manage to bounce back so well?
Their ability to adapt and diversify after that catastrophe, it gives us hope. It shows us how resilient life can be, how new ecosystems emerge, how species fill those empty spaces, how life finds a way, even after the worst happens.
It's a story of survival, of new beginnings, written right there in their fossils. It's pretty inspiring, actually.
It is. And it reminds us that everything is connected. Lystrosaurus and Dicynodon, they were part of this complex web of life, interacting with other species, adapting to their environment. It's like a chain reaction, one change leading to another.
And that's something we can learn from, right? We're all part of that web of life, and our actions have consequences, just like those prehistoric creatures.
Absolutely. By studying the past, we can understand the present better and maybe make wiser choices for the future.
Well, deep divers, our journey through time with Lystrosaurus and Dicynodon has come to an end. But their story, their legacy, it stays with us.
It does. They teach us about adaptation, survival, the interconnectedness of life, and the incredible power of evolution.
And that's something worth pondering, right? So, until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep marveling at the wonders of the natural world. And remember, even in extinction, there's a legacy.